Welcome to this Tutor2U Sociology topic video for social inequality for Cambridge OCR A-Level Sociology. In this video we're going to look at the work of Robert Miles on racialized class fractions. When we study inequality, it's tempting to think of race and class as separate issues, race being about ethnicity and discrimination and class being about wealth and economic position. But sociologist Robert Miles challenged this division. From a neo-Marxist perspective, he argued that race and class are deeply connected, and that racism is not separate from class inequality, but part of how it operates under capitalism. Miles introduced the idea of racialized class fractions. In simple terms, this means that different sections of the working class are divided and treated differently based on race. Capitalism uses racism as a tool to split the working class, preventing unity and collective resistance. And this idea draws heavily on Marxist theory, but Miles developed it further by looking specifically at how racism operates within the class system. Miles wrote in the late 1980s, during a period when Britain had seen several waves of immigration from the Caribbean, South Asia and Africa. Many ethnic minority groups were concentrated in lower paid, insecure jobs and in poorer urban areas. At the same time, Britain was experiencing economic restructuring, deindustrialization, rising unemployment and increasing racial tensions. Against this backdrop, Miles sought to explain why racism persisted and how it connected to capitalism. Miles argued that minority ethnic workers often ended up in certain sectors of the labour market, for example low-paid manual jobs or insecure service work. This wasn't accidental, but a reflection of structural racism. Employers and institutions racialised these groups, marking them as different or other, which justified their lower pay, poorer conditions and exclusion from higher status roles. The key point is that this process divides the working class into racialised fractions. Instead of all workers uniting as one class against capitalist exploitation, divisions of race keep groups apart. For example, white workers may see minority ethnic workers as competitors rather than allies, while minority ethnic workers are stigmatised and excluded, and this weakens class solidarity, which ultimately benefits capitalism. Miles' work is firmly neo-Marxist. Like Marxist, he sees inequality as rooted in the capitalist system of exploitation. However, he adds that race and ethnicity are not just add-ons to class, but are central to how capitalism operates. Racism is not just prejudice or ignorance, it is a structural tool used to divide and control the working class. This perspective challenges Weberian theories such as Rex and Tomlinson's ethnic underclass or Parkin's status groups, which see race and status as separate layers of inequality. Instead, Miles insists that racism is woven into the class system itself. Miles's work was theoretical, drawing on Marxist analysis and historical examples of immigration, employment and race relations. He analysed patterns of work, housing and discrimination to argue that race is a product of capitalist social relations. A strength is that it offers a powerful theoretical framework for understanding the link between race and class. However, it has its limitations. Because it's largely theoretical, it lacks the detailed empirical grounding of studies such as Rex and Tomlinson's, and critics say it may overstate the role of capitalism while underplaying the role of culture, identity or politics. Miles' central claims included the idea that racism divided the working class. White and minority ethnic workers are separated into different class fractions. He also argued that the use of racialization was to justify inequality. Minority groups were constructed as different to explain and maintain their lower pay and status in society. He also argued that capitalism benefits from this. Divided workers were less able to resist exploitation, which kept the capitalist system stable. And Miles's final argument is that race is a social construction. It's not biological, but created through social and economic processes. This helps to explain why ethnic minorities were often concentrated in low-status work, not just because of a lack of skills, but because of systematic racialization. There are a number of strengths to Miles's work. Firstly, it highlights the structural role of racism in capitalism. Secondly, it offers a critical alternative to Weberian status group theories by showing how class and race are interconnected. An enduring strength is that it remains relevant in analysing how migrant labour is used today in insecure jobs, such as agriculture, hospitality and delivery services. However, it has its weaknesses. Critics argue it's too deterministic, seeing racism purely as a product of capitalism, rather than acknowledging cultural and political factors. Furthermore, others suggest it underplays the agency of ethnic minority groups, who don't just passively accept subordination. Postmodernists argue that race and identity are more fragmented and fluid today, making class-based explanations less convincing. For Cambridge OCR Sociology, Miles is very useful in questions about ethnicity, class and inequality. Students can use Miles's research to explain why ethnic minorities are concentrated in low-status jobs and how racism maintains class inequality. Miles's work can also be used to evaluate Weberian perspectives on ethnic inequality or to support Marxist critiques of capitalism. Could also be used in evaluating the ideas of whether class or ethnicity is more important in shaping inequality. Miles's theory of racialized class fractions provides a neo-Marxist explanation of why ethnic inequalities persist. By showing how racism divides the working class and benefits capitalism, Miles gives us a powerful lens for understanding the link between race and class. While some argue his model is too focused on class and economic structures, it remains highly relevant for explaining the position of ethnic minorities in the labour market today. That concludes this Tutor2U Sociology topic video on social inequality for Cambridge OCR A-Level Sociology, looking at the work of Robert Miles and racialised class fractions. Thanks for watching.